Salutations, everyone. It's I, your humble hostess, Funky the Alien. And if you give me a minute, I'm going to finish this little goody treat that I'm chewing on. I went to talk to family for a hot minute to make sure they're okay, and I was offered a Klondike bar, and so I'm If you give me a few extra minutes, or a minute or so, I should be able to have this thing. Oh, no. I have also learned that there is a experience share that you can toggle on, and I will be doing that for the sake of keeping the run from being super long. So like I said, give me a moment to finish Klondike bar, and I'll be good to roll. We're gonna keep the difficulty where it is now. Our party contains a Abita, shield type, or fudge. Hold on, I'll get them. I'll get the names. Frank looking cool. I like that. A will type, a brute type. I'm thinking we have Apio, and we make Apio and a whale. Well, no, then we're stuck with just a shield type, so we can't really do that. I think Apio is going to probably have to, like, combine with a multitude of these. Because Apio's stats are so good, and Dragonbane is also another choice. But I think we're about to have a whole pile of hybrids. We get the funds for it. Okay, so we want. Don't get me wrong, Dragonbane's a pretty. Let's see, Dragonbane. Toxin. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness, did I... Distance can be moved here. The growth can be moved here. And and that balances. But then it unbalances here. I'm trying to know what the growth rate truly did. Yeah, I kind of want it to be more related towards the parent. It's unbalanced right now. So I guess we'll just... You can take the lesser magic stat. I'm not gonna have it be the cow, I'm sorry. This little... I've just basically replaced this little fella. Oh, right now we have overlaps. You know, I want to kind of get more... I want somebody with actual mischievous moves, and it's weird how the mischievous creatures don't have mischievous moves. It's weird how this guy has a mischievous move, but he's not mischievous. I don't know. Let's see. Definitely needs to find another big pitch hitter again, like we did before. But yeah, some of the parts they're basically can be put aside. Don't get me wrong, this Oppo's powerful. Kind of want the Quark to be with something else mixed. Will give us 2. So we have another fighter coming in. We have another. I want to call him. I'm not gonna call him correct for a long time. You'll have to give me a while. Will, Brute, malicious determination, I think. We're gonna have a second determination one coming in. Toss it out too. The thing on the left stats is all better. Got better resistance. Let's get better magic. Has better speed. We might have to just take the speed stat debuff. If I had to choose another, maybe I lose attack. Not attack. I lose a little bit of HP per level. Or toxic. I mean, the 3 resistance is going to be pretty decent. The extra speed is going to make it allow it to get ahead of a lot of enemies and pre-debuff it. Good lord, 30 boxes. Hoping to get some more tricksters going. Oh, I can move them around. Serious? Oh yeah, we talked to this guy. Yeah, but I just got back from vacation at Nuko City, having emptied my wallet at the gambling casino. And then I got home and I find out I left out one of my bags at the hotel. Ooh. Then there's this landslide on the road between Windy Province and Desperado Province, so I can't even walk back. I'll have a spare $50 to get a forklift ride. Now just 50 bucks. That's pretty mediocre, all things considered. An old piano. I wonder if I can figure out how to work one of these. Sheet music here. Let's see. Wandering in the forest. Try it. Oh. Excuse me, young man, you haven't happened to know anything about the murder that occurred near the post office about a week ago? Right, Don. I wasn't even here a week ago. My apologies. Oh, it's a detective. Just one more thing, and then I'll be out of your hair. You tamed those monsters yourself. Sure did. That's, well, my wife. Oh no, I know who this is. My wife. My wife. She's always banging on about getting one of those domestic pet monsters. You know the name, Yuto? Think they're cute. Now me, I got my own plate as it is. I do anything to make her happy. But naming a monster, it ain't easy as it looks. That's supposed to be Columbo. Holy cow, that is a reference. My goodness, that is a Columbo reference. Oh yeah, he gives me the HP meal. My dad got executed. I got a lump sum of inheritance. But what's the use? I don't know what to do with it. So I just pissed it all away here, drinking. Been a rumor that sometimes the Lantern over in Garmacy actually talk. Freaks me out. You know, there are monsters that can talk. Oh. Sleep. Now when I look over at the ruined monument that used to creep outside of town, I get this eerie feeling of being judged, like something is weighing my sins. Maybe I've been drinking too much. Ah, so there isn't a net. I heard there's some nightmarish forest demon that stalks between the trees just north of town. Sometimes, when I'm walking home, I look north and see a horrible smile glaring back at me. Since I first saw it, I was too scared to leave the town. Ah. I need to get those demon, I need to get a demon pack so I can get the high tier monsters. But no one sells that pack. Oh yeah, tamer merchandise. Yes, normal packs, living bags, ultra rares. What's there to do around town? Well, the primary draw of our fine city there is the university and culture. It's not the common stuff for tamers, such as yourself. But maybe you... oh, I'll check it out. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I should go to the college to see what there's there. I might find a secret or two. Why are you here? Apology, youngster. The lecture hall is currently closed to the public. You know that it's possible for some monsters to change their affinity for transformation items over time. We have recorded the date back as year 200 that states Canite used to transform with Book of the Dead. The Canite population of this world about was wiped out by the raptor. People reported a sudden change where a new kind of Canite began to appear. Their affinity was now with the Frostbite item. Since then, some of the Frost Providence Canite have migrated back to this Desperado ecosystem. You have to check by the Frostbite alignment Canite pack leaders. They leap into the sky and take Raptor down in one bite. Oh, none of these are readable? Oh, man. Sometimes I wish the technology the Crown Nation was able to advance. I'm actually from Histon originally. Probably got that the monsters tear up the infrastructure to maintain vital parts of our ecosystem. It brought balance. Something that's ready to just you look wild. I have created small monsters. Big Bully, soft flesh. Foresight, soft flesh. Looks like the higher tier one's gonna take longer. Slightly longer. mischievous. We can have a huge roster. That's what really throws me off. We actually can have a huge roster. There's 5 and a party of, I think, 9? Or 8. You have some overlaps. Oh hey, we're researching how monsters transform and how they interact with their breeding habits. Some monsters' transformations are actually just part of their normal life cycle, accelerated through the use of an item. Dracula is a good example of this. So whenever a Dracula AC breeds, it will have a regular juvenile Dracula also. If you wanted to get a Dracula AC hybrid, you need to use fusion. Certain things are only available through fusion. Can you believe it? That daughter, old Blake, believes that humans are born with innate knowledge of linguistic structure. His days at the university are numbered. What do you mean innate knowledge of linguistic structure? If Blake is to be believed, he means to say that humans beings understand the structure of how languages work as a function of biology and not as a product of their environment. I don't know how that won't make sense. What's wrong with that thing about that? Think of that. I think it's the premise that humans naturally form linguistic structures from the idea that children, especially infants, learn language much quicker than adults, with more developed brains do. Then it abstracts that behavior to human nature, that there is no specific biology or psychology evidence to suggest that a human may conceive of a language of pure oscillation. Actually, you're wrong, my friend. I'm actually aware of this. They had 2 kids that made up their own language. Surely you agree with that theory is pure. That theory is pure nonsense. That on the pure evidence that it can. Oh my God! I don't think it's crazy to suggest the case. Mankind creates new words for new ideas all the time. At some point, they must be able to innovate. But the other one is, yeah, no. Huh. Well, I was expecting a pumpkin tamer like you to understand. Buzz off, will you? I'm trying to find a book on Hana anatomy here. There's a lot of debate that goes in classifying a new monster species. For literally hundreds of years, there's never been a consensus on whether or not Gargulkara is actually a unique species. They've been in the employ of the Barga chain of doors for a long time as anyone can remember, but they look very similar to Oship. Exhausted that Doloremus has done nothing but tear down my theories. Are you willing to hear me? About what? Here's you've been bored of today. Potatoes. Exhausted arrows and is still able to achieve output with similar enough target language to be understood. Oh, there's 3 entries for this one. Although children have a greater ability to absorb information, building correlation and not causation. No. It's possible that mankind, of course, a lack of data is the problem. I'll attempt to conduct an experiment in this vein and present my findings. Then Remus will shut up. None of these were interactable. That is just an absolute travesty. Are you familiar with Synergy, the universal binding force? Tamers use it to battle to perform miraculous feats. You power up a monster's attack with it, or even transform them into something else entirely for a brief moment. Best tamers make the most of it in a fight. Don't underestimate how it can turn the tide of battle. Yeah, it transforms moves outright sometimes. A little blue bastard over there has been following me all day. Trust me, if I don't know how fast one of them could rip your guts apart, I'd punt him down, son. McSterry. Name is Guard. When I grow up, I want to be just like Inquisitor Nefer. Oh God. These may protect us from the wild monsters that would destroy us. Yes, me, all tamers are insane fools. Monsters can't be trusted. Through Lord-sized science, we've made something far stronger and more reliable by combining the two. One time, my little brother, he threw up a little too close to Inquisitor Nefer. He was killed on the spot. He was 17, bless him. A kid. The little girl looks up to her. I can't take that dream away from her. There's so little to dream about in this godforsaken country. Without the protection that Beastmen offer us, we'd be overrun by wild monsters in days. The evil we have to live with. One time I went crash, this place is clean. What was back here that didn't want me going down? Oh, this is into the castle. Probably want to get my roster a little stronger before I go back into the castle. The rooms to the west probably would be a good start. Actually, let's see how Expatia works. Oh, we need to patch up. I didn't know we were down on energy. Or health, actually. Okay, so it just heals him. So, Dragobane, who won the fight, gets 365, while everyone else gets 219. Despite the fact that Vita started the fight, because they didn't clear it, they're not the ones that get the biggest XP boost. Yeah, this is going to help us get caught up right back up real quick. I'd be better off fighting the trainers real quick, catch up super fast, and then we can. I guess I honestly don't know where to go. She's really powerful, but I don't know. You're faster than. Also sped up the battle animations. Whoa, you look awesome. What are you? I really like our Dragonbane, and our Dragonbane Offspring are going to be great as well. Their total stats is 172, and they're only level 12. Good gracious. Oh yeah, it's a new day, so all the trainers have respawned. Oh shit, I wish I didn't KO the big guy. I wish I took it with me. Okay, so there should be one more ambush, quote unquote, south of here. If he had Bully, he'd be dangerous as hell. Drago's Bane has been absolutely amazing. Oh, we don't have a hard move for him. I think we can make him harder for us to hit. There's a trainer down here. Yep, there they are. Yeah, I think if it's a good matchup, it has a higher chance to Plague. Draco AC. Gargoyle. It's a gargoyle. He hurts. Oh! These Dracos look amazing. Hey, oh! Alright, FB. Flutter, we don't have an ultimate move for. Tanky. I'm gonna see if I can get through him with tail. I'm not a fan of the stall creatures. It goes to do more damage the higher their armor is. Beta's already caught up to their their offspring. No, siblings. That one was fused. I forgot what I fused it with, but the point is, it's just, Jesus. No, I fused it. No, that's an offspring. Point is, it's already stronger than its. Good gracious. Almost strong. It's 6 levels lower, and it's already stronger than Beta. Good gracious. The 226. Yeah, these are the 17 range have already are just right behind them. Wait. Already fought and caught you. I think. A new species. Okay, that's good. A different color crap? No. I don't know how the heck we're gonna beat What's-Her-Face. She was in the 50s, I believe? I know we're gonna need a full array, that's for certain. So if you're, what are you? Okay, you're one of these. This is the one I wanted to catch. Have an offspring with. Be fine. Huh. Oh, it's still rare-ish. Douglas says it's on type. high defense, high speed, decent attack, low magic, decent health. Total, 15 total, 15, 14, 16, 12, 13. He gains. His gains are pretty bad. Being the average. But, you know, you're not supposed to fight. Akias, go on. We definitely want to learn more of those. Is there any more rares? Oh yeah, the 3000 rare. Another core art. Defining with, or it's a fudge brute with toxin abilities. A growth spread of 12 point. I see why it's low on magic, low on growth. Decent on. It's actually pretty decent across the board. Airstrike rate. If sent out in the first turn of battle, this monster will always move first on that turn. Gets less health from food items. Wall of water. I want something that can cover itself. That's what drives me bananas. I wanna. Let's see. I would need. Actually, this here is kind of a perfect example. It's a will type, which gives me the strength and has the ability to counter the type that counters it with Genbu, Suiryu, and Triumphant Light. Well, Triumphant Light's not exactly a great choice. You know what? I have a feeling you're high defense, aren't you? 4.7 defense. 4.6. Oh. Oh, I know. So you're a. Oh my god. 3.10 HP gains. Attack power 2.10. They just need attack moves. .2 resistance. Like, this could be a brutal tank. .5. Good God. Alright, well, that's a nice baseline of 16.5. We're fully healed. You know, here, what's going on with the plot? I'm assuming they're just not gonna let me waltz around the castle, are they? Like, there's some kind of monster that's like, hard time moving around these legs. Button, do I press it? What? Maybe there's another one other than the hall. Oh! Absolute fist. Ooh. They made a double save. Oh. Oh. So you can come in through this way without having the... Okay. Super Grow. Demon Pack. As far as capable monster. As far as capable monster. Oh. I see how that works. It halves how much resources I have. Fight those guys. Oh. I say, I thought you'd flounder about and make things difficult for us here for a while. But walk into a castle to challenge us directly. Braver than your brother. Perhaps it's then. And you ready to kill? Capable of it. And what? Will you stop me once I'm dead? No, I'm gonna bring it all down. You just happen to be the first thing in the way. Then I'll string you up in front of the front gates to make an example of anyone who stands against me. Punch up. I think you'd have that, or they didn't think she'd have that, but she did. Let's hope it has last better, but. Just half health. It's gonna be very close. Mr. Genbu. I don't think she's down. Lord Tai. Hail? It's the worst part of hell. I hope you're headed to it. Ew. Oh! Oh! Okay. Mo traveled to the land unknown in the far south, to the true home of the old kings. There that he came face to face with horrors like which no man seen before or since. A harrowing battle that followed, the boy became a man, and then a demon who wished for nothing but war. He sought out the old kings in their dark castles, one by one, who delivered death upon the old kings, and save for one, the king Greed, who left the world that day a coward. At last, he came to face the greatest demon, most powerful king who could muster. The volume ends. There's also non-fiction. Must be something to political theory and law for whatever law's worth, really. Oh, look at him! They look adorable. Even at level 1, they have 6s across the board. That's volume 6. One, two, three, like in the other 2 rooms. Once in a country torn by war, a young boy came to have a monster was owned by chance. Father was a respected hero of the Great War, and he sent his son off into the world he believed to be safe. However, the boy soon came upon trouble. He encountered a woman who sought for artifacts to revive 3 dreaded kings from the past. The boy swore that he would defeat this woman. Time and again, the woman would thwart the boy's attempts to keep these artifacts safe. At the 11th hour, the boy betrayed a dear friend and walked a lonesome road to his final battle. While he was there, the boy arrived at the staging area ground for the ritual. A brutal battle began. He defeated the woman soundly, but the voices came to him through the veil of the reality itself. The boy wanted true power, that he would forsake his friends and family to seek the 3 kings out of their real hiding place, a land far to the south. The boy accepted and betrayed his friends one final time. He transformed into a horrid man beast. Forsaking everything, he cut down all who opposed him. Verse 4. This is 3, right? Yeah. 6. Where is 4? Or is it missing on purpose? The Red King returned to his home country. He was immediately hunted by the friends he betrayed, injured but alive. His reign over the country was brutal, and many suffered and died. The Red King came to understand and control his power. He soon realized that if the old kings could summon such demons from the void, mankind could be in danger from such beings. He concocted a plan. He began to work on a plan that would see all of mankind evolve. He elected his betrayed friends to be his witness for what would happen next. Preparation for a war in the heavens. However, the Red King's plans were cut short. Not long after he began to put his plans into motion, that a new conflict erupted. He found himself in a strange new world. This was the war in the heavens he had vainly tried to prepare for. The Red King was there, the day of the sky burning. Glasses, making something, but I don't know what they're trying to convey. But that thing in the middle kind of reminds me of the Muro Spire. King of Dragon Legend. Once in a country torn by war, a young boy came to have a monster. Wait a minute, this is different. His father was a respected hero of the Great War, and he sent his son off. The world would be below to be safe. However, the boy came upon a yeah, this is what we just read down below. Defeat this woman. And again, it was the fire in that boy's soul that kept him putting it forward at the altar. And in the end, he won the day, but it came at the cost of the life of his best friend. Oh, so it's two versions of this. He believed that he could save the woman from her fate, and that he could have saved his friend. Sadness became anger, and then his anger became a white-heart fury. It was said that the fury of the king was so great that the great crimson dragon split the heavens. Everyone on the island heard its sky-rending roar. Those who saw it were blinded by its magnificence. The beast had let loose from the boy's heart. And he became a man. And then the king disappeared for 2 years. Nobody knows where exactly he went and what he did. Tales and rumors came to the chambered camps, but nothing was certain. Then he returned. The king of dragons made his way to the far south, to the true home of the old kings. He challenged them in their home. He delivered unto them, the three brothers, a swift death, save for one, the king of greed, who left that world a coward. At last he came upon the great demon summoned by the final king, Thirst. Still to suffer a battle ahead. That would be his most desperate battle. Okay, here's the volume we couldn't find. It was through the technique most ancient and vulnerable that the king was able to overcome thirst, destroying it utterly. At last, he sat upon the ruined throne of the king, worshipped, and smiled. It was a job well done. In the years after, the king of dragons disappeared entirely. Like a rumor made its way back to the homeland, where he had crossed over an unthinkable boundary into the unknown. Not that he had spent much of his later life searching for landmasses beyond his homeland, but it would not be too long before he stood among the other heroes of the world. King of Dragons was there on the day the sky burned. Hey, what? The stories are so similar. The Blue Queen. There was a young orphan girl. Her hair shone a bright crimson. Her heart was burdened by the hatred of the world around her. She carried her sorrow with her like an impossible weight, for she had no place to go and no friends to comfort her in the time of need. She fought for every scrap of food and every resting place. One day, as was the tradition in her country, the ancient god Dominion descended from the heavens and began his great competition. So great was Dominion's power that wherever he was on Earth, people would be compelled to look in his direction, even if they could not see him. Orient's here. This kind of quick. I don't want to jump ahead yet. Min's great game was simple. Every year, in the largest city in the country, a great battle was held. Participants would arrive in the center of the city to compete. Those who arrived had 1 year to prepare, and then at the end of the year, the bloodbath would begin. Whoever stood atop the pile of bodies at the end of the year gains Dominion's favor. The hatred in her heart, the young woman sought Dominion's favor, but soon found herself manifesting strange abilities. Aided by the mysterious scholar from another land, she began to unpick the true nature. The rest of the page and all of it others intertwined. The third volume of the tale of the Blue Queen. The pages have been defaced beyond illegibility. Something within these books that someone once hidden. The fourth volume, also defaced. Snowy waste in a certain country, a young boy yearned to become a trader. He was inspired by the exploits of a great adventurer who had helped him years ago. The land was at peace since the adventurer had defeated the 3 old kings. Monsters of the land had claimed considerably. Mother finally relented and allowed him to go on his journey. Young men traveled to the country far and wide, became tamer, though right, though the use of the mysterious cards that were able to summon forth monsters from the air. Be able to bring together the most powerful tamers in the country, and eventually confronted the reckless and self-centered tamer who wished for the world to return to its violent ways. The young man met the brash tamer at the site of a great battle. The adventurer who inspired him and finally defeated the great evil. Their fight supposedly lasted days. Finally, the young boy was forced to unleash his powerful card, which contained a monster most mysterious. Not known particularly what happened next, the brash tamer never seen again. The country settled into a newfound prosperity. The young boy sought out the home of the adventurer who he idolized. They met for the first time in many years. The of the fight they had was never recorded, but everyone who recounted the tale said it was the greatest monster tamer battle in history. The days arrived quicker than expected for many, though some had desperately tried to prepare for it. Nothing could have been enough for what would happen next. 1,000 souls, equal in their greed, joined together. The unholy union usurped his father at this final, most desperate moment. Worlds began to collide, and time had no meaning anymore. Trillions died in the ensuing cataclysm. Food could not grow. Monsters had evolved into something far more powerful than anyone could anticipate. It seemed as though everything would collapse here. That was until 3 heroes arrived at the edge of this new world. Though they were different, each of them set aside their differences and attacked entropy itself. Volume 2. One of the heroes reached deep inside entropy's soul and found the source of its power. A being of pure hatred and evil. This hero, already burdened by the sorrow himself, offered it a second chance. Though he could not offer this being the life that it had been robbed of so long ago, it could offer them closure, then peace. They accepted. Love and hatred, creation and destruction, hope and desire, the service of those two became one. being of an unimaginable strength. It was the righteous judgment. That's me. Yeah. From his spear, the war was ended, and the new world teemed with life and opportunity was born from the pieces of the old one. Capable monsters. Did I pick up? Oh, I did pick. But it only gives one level, doesn't it? That's all it does, is one level. Mostly non-fiction. Much of it seems to be military law. Oh, Zildjian! Heard you arrive from the floor below. Take it that my Inquisitor is dead. Yes. How unfortunate. Effective tool, but, well, you've met her, haven't you? She got what she deserved. Did enjoy her work. Too much for her own good. I know why you're here. It was I who ordered that your brother be taken into custody. I was not informed of his execution, though. Yennefer has gone beyond the letter of her orders. If I hadn't killed her for that, I'd have done it myself. It doesn't make us even. I'm here to put an end to your madness. Madness? I have lived for almost 1,000 years. The madness I've seen, having begun to come. Even if I showed you some of that madness cataloged here, vast library of mine, I've long had a fascination with the madness that permeates history. Things that make history quite maddening, that nobody can agree on how anything happened, even as it's happening in front of them. History is all chaos and interpretation. Everything real and everything's fake. All at the same time. Charged with ensuring that the history of Loitzai's order is concise and exact, free of man's opposed hysteria on time. And history will reflect that I killed you on this day. Though I can't stop what happens, I shall give you one chance to leave this place. If you and your family remain unharmed, this is your one opportunity. Can't do that. Too much is at stake. Then I will take up my sword. Gift from my brother, Iomoten. How ecstatic he will be when he has learned that I have found a worthy foe for him. What?
Now, you will face the unchanged wrath of the Heavenly King. I am the one who grows. I shall teach you a lesson in compassion, then you shall die.
Zildjian, the one who grows, draws his... Oh god, it's got operatics! Oh, he is gonna be tough to shred through. There's no advantage against him. This sucks. Oh, he actually gonna pop Soul Sword now. Popping out speed. That's out of the. I guess that was out of the question. Seems like we need to be level 30-ish being here. Because he is chunking huge. Hoping to get him to miss every now and again, but yeah, I kind of boned to that one. Owie! We need 30s across the board. Also, that's kind of cheese. I think I broke his fight script because when I gave him a negative debuff, he kept pushing for the higher and higher Royal Jelly. So I think he pops Royal Jelly when he has a 10 or 20 in all stats. If you crack it open, and you can change it, I think that's what caused such a massive difference of that. Because he just kept charging it like, this isn't right. He's just, why is he going this high up? Deleted. Happy little buddy right here. Already 111, and he's only. I had to go for this guy. I thought it would be interactable. Okay, what level's down here? 25. We're off to a good start though. 25 is a pretty good range so far. Oh, new perk. Can't improve that one. Okay. Jingles, Fat First Aider, Pale Rider. I guess I'll take the Haggler since I have no idea how to ride. Oh no. Okay, cool. Okay, so one fight. There's no. Oh, hello. You look amazing. What are you? Catch free. Devious type. Devious types are strong against. Should deal less damage. This is a Supreme pack. Speaking of packs. Left. Okay, so back, so getting it wrong takes you straight back. Slightly lower, because I want to see if there's... What level are you guys? 26. The area. Very narrow corridor. Oh, you claw. I was gonna fight that. $35. Oh. Cool. Grinda. $201 at level 17. Where's the... I thought you looked atypical, so I was like, eh? Kind of kicking myself for not capturing the other ones. Other supers are they're gonna be missed. Oh, just noticed the soundtrack, it gets less and less. It loses instruments as we go upward. Took care of the sarcophagus thing. Good job, kid. Say, for your troubles, why don't you have the Supreme Pack? Carried it around, but I can't decide what to use it on for the life of me. Hey, thanks. Look after yourself, man. Oh, take more damage from criticals. $15.8. It just grows slower. That's technically less than. Oh! Oh, I can ride him! Look at him! Create a little cheat sheet so I know what can be what if it's on the same critter. Okay, so we did have a tech overflow. That cleaned up our list and gave us some moves back that we're missing. Well, this thing lets us get around faster now. Whee! She doesn't respawn. That's actually kind of bad. So 4 more supers and see if you can get another great hybrid. to cave. Hello, rock friend. I'm gonna grab one of you. Beetle. He's only 18. He's not taking nothing for damage. We need to know what these creatures are capable of. Aren't you an interesting little critter? Oh, you look like something amazing. Gorge him. Dude, I wish I bought a whole pile of more regular ones, because... There. Back and start. What are you? You're also another critter. This shouldn't do a lot of damage. Let's see. Oh, that's what I want. Water. Let's do a 3 attack. Okay, we can get him down without having Adrena Toxin. Oh, it actually deals damage. I thought I just did an effect. I'd have been surprised if a Supreme one didn't work. I mean, there's always that probably dice roll that it might fail. Whole cornucopia of creatures to see what they turn into. A unique food though. You're huge. Oh, they have gravity. That's wild. It's actually amazing to see a creature that you can actually pick up that has gravity. Great use for this. Welcome to the pile. Looking for anything unusual down here. First. Ooh, well, that's gonna hurt. I'd like to fight the creature. Here. Megalico. 35. Fight Club. Charge. Big bully trait. Yeah. Right. Fight for downs. Water. Oh no. Oh. That actually went really well. Big bully trait's gonna make it little ouchies. This is actually the primary chance to try to get him on our side before he heals. Aha! get into the water. Excuse me? Portion of the dungeon I can't explore because I can't swim. That might be a trainer unlock for later. Another powerhouse to figure out what we can do with. Fusion's out of the question. We want to be able to make multiple generations of powerhouses. Oh, beating him's gonna be tough. He's very sturdy, and he has a lot of hit points. I know he's a 1 on 6, 7? Oh, sure. Oh, hello. Actually, they're very closer. Joryu is going to be great in the fight, but keeping a person alive long enough to keep using it. Ugh. I did down him. Hydrating! Bleh. Absolute fist. hydrated. How you doing, Nier? Oh, he's faster than us. Oh, Trickster Beat looks adorable. Oh, he's got gravity. Oh, it's also squishy. Oh yeah, they're good matchup still on the list. It's fast. It's wild. I should be faster, I bet. Victory! Up to 458 stat. 293 just at nearly level 30. 366 stat line with at level. Good gracious. 324 at 29. A little banged up. I kind of want to head back to base. Oh wait. That's just true. How's it going, sis? I get that too. How you doing today? Really? Well, I'll leave you to it. Notebook, help me out. Nope. The only way to get over there is I have to be able to get to the water. Oh, hey, some normal packs. It's a shame you're gone now. I would have bought all their stock if I could have. That would have been a heck of a starter squad. I want to fight some more trainers to get some more power. I don't think they've respawned though yet. Cause I think I would have been assaulted by now by the pirate, or the one that likes to hang around here. What are you? So it can't be enraged. How are you doing so much damage? I infused him with a pretty decent strength and resistance. Rude. Oh yeah, I have to go fight the bad guy at night, so Porkrat can fight. What are they? What is that? Gold Steel. Oh, they stole my synergy? Get the fuck out. Gone. Drago's Bane came with like all the perfect moves and a high stat line. Oh, petrified. Now they're just extra screwed. We're gonna build up power all over again. What are these? Let's put it in perspective. Draco Bane's child is stronger than this. Well, Wilby is strong. Draco's Bane is 377 right here, and this Draco's Bane is 4. Let's see, they're about the same growth rate. Yeah, 1 growth rate of 1. Getting a 2.0 growth rate is gonna be wild if we can pull it off. But yeah. They're only level 30, and they're already really catching up. I think they have more. They almost have more resistance, don't they? They're gonna have more HP very shortly. Oh, those fighter battles are perfect. Means this one's respawned, maybe? Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. We just used Chisel. And now he's gonna go second. gone! Gone! This was a merge, if I remember correctly. Alright, now I feel a lot more confident. I think we can win that fight now. Now that I just need to buy a pile of normal packs, and I'll feel a lot more comfortable getting around and getting more critters if we bump into stuff we haven't seen before. Oh, dang it. The upside of having critter, you're faster. The drawback, you're also bigger. I have none, so I'll take 10. Kind of wild seeing more of these in here, but I want to see another Dreckelbane. That thing was amazing. I'd merge it on the spot. Alright, let's top off. Say we should be in better condition, but we'll see. Jinryu is going to be our best ability when it comes to negating his shenanigans. But he also hits like a brick truck, so maybe, may not. I'm going to avoid any fight with him because he has gravity, which also means our long fights are also our bane. Oh god, you're gonna do all the dialogue a second time.
Becoming big!
He goes before me. I think I know how to play this card. Maybe I should have done that at the beginning of the fight. I could probably still do it now. Special Sinryu. We're gonna have Dragon's Bane go last. We're basically gonna try to whittle him down for our biggest hitter. Oh, he didn't burn the, yes, he was super slamming me. Okay, so when he gets to 50%, he'll pop it. Okay. Soul Sword. I don't think he's plagueable. Ah, you missed. something to the effect to cancel it out. He missed! I missed!
Squish.
Oh! Oh, it's gonna be down to the wire. Oh boy. Ah, take dirt nap. Oh, he was worth 1,000 a pop. Good God. Oh my God, but he was worth 50 player experience. Bell Rider, I guess.
What is strength? I fear for my brothers. Fear for history.
Being your brothers might be the wisest thing you've done in your life. Oh, right. I murked him. Ooh. What was that?
lives. Shall fade in your subconscious shortly. Listen to what I have to say. This is my power, added to yours. From now on, you are no longer human. You now possess the qualities scant few men have acquired in history. Lord Sai named it the Armature Factor. This factor enables the absorption of even greater strength. My soul, a blind, critical panic, bonded itself to you. Ability. The Armature Factor, spiritual matter of both of us, 4 heavenly kings, and even monsters will recognize your divine right to bear their arms and acquire their power for yourself. Why would you tell me any of this? We're enemies. Between souls, there can be no lies. I could not withhold information even if I wanted to. There is dramatic irony in having part of your enemy within you. But alas, the die is cast. History shall read somewhere new with your acquisition of this power. With it comes intuitive understanding. Gaze at the stars. Meditate upon your action. If you do, monsters may be simulated to increase your strength, which will forever walk as an other if you do. Understanding. I think I know. No. It's like I know how to do this my whole life, actually. This measure of his strength allows me to alter the physical properties of things. The scarf. Use it like a lasso. Climb up new places. Monsters too. Starts here. The more the heavenly kings I defeat, the stronger I'll become. The top of Mirror Spire. To use King Tendril's ability, press the fake key or left trigger. If you're in range, you'll target an object or monster. Press the Z or A to confirm and zip to this object. You can also use this ability to draw in hard-to-reach monsters towards yourself. Be to cancel. New power. We're kind of banged up. Unless... Yeah, no, we're banged up. Oh, wait. I can sleep in this place. What? Absolute beast. The only problem is, I know how I will act if given the freedom to just absorb monsters.
dead. Listen, Eric is dead. All countries about to go to hell in a handbasket. It's your fault that nobody respected law and order anymore. I don't know why I just paid him money. Just sealed out the logo. We can go. Desperado Province, part of the quest. But at the same time, we could also go to Gramercy. There's a little ledge. Bolton's ability. I might be able to get up there onto the cliff. Coming off the spire. Away. Out for the spire, then they've probably already heard about Littlejin. They'll be hunting me down. Should be careful. Wait, Tubby! Hana. Free power, it shouldn't. No way to organize my inventory. Lady Dimagon, have you ever taken a moment to truly observe the society? Very interesting. To hear you find some fascination as well. Surprisingly, not many care to try to understand them. What has ever caught your eye about them? Their armor and hammers. I agree. What an amazing ritual they have. They are born, of course, naked, bikini monsters, but they seem to have inbuilt instinct to create. I've been observed in isolation, Dimagon. You may find that this is particularly interesting. About 3 years ago, I saw a troop of Stagless send up to this village. The Begon had not yet finished building a home around one of their nests, and so the Staglon made off with a few eggs. The research did not interfere with their subjects, but the mother of the eggs was a Begon I had followed since its birth. In agony, I lost myself for a moment and ran after the Stagless. I, of course, had no chance of reaching them, but they were slow enough to follow for a few moments. When it was dropped just over the hill, just west of here, the fall was considerable. While the egg seemed immensely intact, it had a fracture. I assumed the worst. A week or so later, I went for a walk. What do you know? Well, Demigon was over there. I couldn't directly reintroduce the Demigon to his clan. That would include the ability for the Demigon to get used to me, ignore me as part of the background. I placed a little food over the days to form a path. Young Demigon returned home, but in those days I saw it gnaw on sticks and gather dark stones, and it was clearly predisposed, seeking a weapon. It seems monsters and animals to be born with built-in knowledge. Humans were born with nothing. We need our parents. I wonder how those thoughts feel. I talked to them? Arr. Well, he told me to come to Desperado. It's raining. Maybe I should have got the one that had them leave me the flip alone. Bloody guillotine? Oh, it heals. Well, I didn't think of that up your sleeve. Oh, foresight, yeah. Give me your money. Here's Here's your candies. Monsters get monster candies. Alright kid, the road to this road was blocked off. There was a landslide and a big boulder blocked the way. Assuming I could whoop my way over. Think you tried clearing it? Yep, you tried everything. Tried blowing it up with dynamite. Some of the other guys who came through here tried breaking it with their monsters do, but no good. But I've tried everything to clear these rocks. I fell from the plateau over there, and it's blocking our path to Desperado Province. Tried using my Moroku to burrow through it, but he can't get a budge. I think it's a windy province. I think it's go cliffs of Gromancy to the east. Might be able to use a rope or something. Okay. Oh. I knew they wanted me to Gromancy, but how would you get from? You just go west of there? Doesn't seem like there's a path there. Unless the Mirror Spire is like. Yeah, it blocks it off. Real good. Decent shadow off above the mountain and the wall that surrounds the spire. Water nearby also keeps ambient temperature low. Deserts aren't just so hot all the time. Regulated temperature is important. Our province is a holy ground, but sure does make a good shortcut between provinces. Safe and easy. And I bet that'll change. Raptor doesn't really pay much attention to us. They're too busy fighting with the canine on the mountain. I'll try to get one position, yeah? Hey there, have you ever wanted to ride a monster on the waters and figured out how to get the balance right? Sure, that'd help me get around. I don't even know how to swim to begin with. Hey, I'll teach you. Here, let me show you. There, you should be able to swim with a monster. Remember, not all monsters can swim, so you try it with species like Miracle Storm or Jerky. Ride with your monster and walk it into any body of water. You can also swim, but I would only do this in emergency. Won't outswim any monster in the sea. Thanks. I'll put this to good use. Oh, you don't swim. You don't swim either. Sad. I know my big boy probably could swim. Friendly trainer battle? Sure! Damn. Rage. Oh, it has heavy. Why is it a flutter then?
Play.
This one was faster. Aggressive combat. He's got two faces. Good gracious. I wonder what people will make of these ruined villages in the thousands of years, or if they ever find it at all. What do you think they'll think about us if they ever find them? Maybe that we were weak, driven out. Maybe that we were resilient, needed to rebuild. It makes me wonder just how much my own perception, I place on my discoveries. I wonder if we were studying in 1,000 years. We were able to care for or study anything about us. He's the spire. He isn't going anywhere. What about us actually is special? Maybe. This is he getting to me. I'm sure I'll find something great about us tomorrow. These days are enough to worry about. You're probably right. See you around. Well, met traveler. Need anything? I need directions. Well, to the south, y'all rode back into what you promised, though I heard there was a problem down the way. North is Nikio Town. Northeast is the Raptor Mountain. Yeah. I've been feeling I ain't quite put my finger on something big that brings changes about to happen. But again, laws of averages say that nothing ever happens, so I'm probably waiting for something that'll never come, huh? Never been to Nikio, you should see a chest guard. They look like one-eyed steel soldiers. They say they only use energy while in motion. As they stop, their body naturally holds the position as if it was a solid piece of metal. Forget the chest guard in the room then was completely motionless for hours, but the rest, sure, still watching. A buddy of mine once said that someone tried to rob the Gambit Casino, and no joke, he was cut into ribbons in about 2 seconds. Before you hit the floor. That's security you can count on, I guess. O-ships? Seen an O-ship? The deep sea monster? Yeah, they are formidable. They are. They can pinch off even the toughest material with their pencils. Oh, you've looked very interesting. That you, old friend? No, of course not. Been far too long since then. No time, another place. You mean another time, another place. Doesn't matter. All I've lived through has passed into fiction. Focus on this world. Present, but looking back. I see things most people can't, or won't, or don't want to. Many people are blind to the world around them. Hear some kind of sight too. See a path, a narrow one, but it's there. You're dead set on walking. Perhaps once you reach the end of it, there will be peace. Faces aren't my strong suit anymore, but there's something more to you than surface level. Something bubbling just underneath your skin, hot, boiling. You have a lot of heart to drive. Try not to lose yourself on your journey. Do right by those you love. Before you leave, to ask you your favorite. What is it? There's a species of monster, a rather rare kind, that I think that has a certain sigil on its underside. Drawn it in the sand, down next to the stack. Friendly, wise sort of monster. Has many wings, many powers over lightning. Find the monster like bring it to me. I only wish to see the monster once again. Sure, I'm always ready to strange things, so I'll keep an eye for it, old man. Man, thank you. Hope to see it soon. Oh. Inventory shop. Oh wow, normal packs here are cheap. There are sleeping bags. I know I got the cat haggler, but man, they... Oh, hey, monsters! Purchase many delicious ice sweets in the Frost Province. About quickly, so you must go there in person to try them. So delicious, they're certainly worth the trip, though. Howdy and welcome to Siltstone Monster Store. Let's see here. I already got one of you. Golem. A roast. I don't think there's a monster place here. Alright, let's make our way up to the casino town then. Probably a trainer. Always watching the bat. A Yunto. Oh, these things haven't been staring me wrong yet. Oh, that's 63,000. The font's a little squishy, so it's kind of hard to read a little bit sometimes. 63,000 for a Yunto. Oh, that was an advertisement, wasn't it? Yep. We're watching you everywhere you go. Hey, you look enterprising, young man. You must have seen the guy in Kira who's just about every town, right? I wonder how they got one? Come to think of it, I've never seen a Kira in the wild. Right, well, it turns out Kira's actually just a prematurely hatched Kyrian. Ain't that something? Show me a Kira. I can hot breed you a Kira for free. For a fee. Do I have one in the party? I didn't think I did. That looks terrifying. I don't think I bumped into one, have I? What? Hey there, say, don't I know you from somewhere? Killed King Zelda, the Inquisitor in F-Tier. Surprisingly honest for a target of a nationwide manhunt. It must be Seth. Good points, though I expect you were here to kill me and not engage in a pleasant discussion about the merits of gastronomy, aren't you? 10 points. Ah, you're a sharp one. Tell you what, no fighting here and make a real mess of ourselves. Why don't we meet in the upper floors of the Gambit Casino? to the end of the main street. I can even tell the chest guards, Orman and Dino, or to get out of the way and let you up. But you aren't. You're the same with the other defenses up there. Good thing, too. Let's finish up here. Can't fight on an empty stomach. Excuse me now. Well, I wasn't ready for that. $3,000 for a Yuto. Heard a Super Grow could use on an Apo into a mighty fighter. Oh! Just to get to the big ugly brute. Okay, that's what the SG stands for. And the monster list, Apo SG means Super Grow. We have a weird one in our pack. I wonder what happens if we transform it. Where's the fast travel in this town? I'm tempted to use the scroll just to find the fast travel in this town. Either I've walked past it, which is very viable, very, very possible, because this place is... You can get lost in this place. Is there... Can I just talk to you to access my monster storage? Oh, thank God. There it is. Twin Ore. You need a new name. They get heavy when they get that buff. How many weird creatures? File. Alright, well now I know if I go up to the casino floor area, I will be in for a good long pile of fights. First floor is, however, the gambling casino. Time for playing games. So I can't farm money through gambling. I'm not actually upset about that. Spicy meat must be gone out of this. Wow, okay. I'll feature the Super Apple Run. From the Monster Box guy. Hey, yet another eager visitor to my impressive adult breakfast. Well, take one, feast your eyes on a true pinnacle of monster. More than a single look will cost you though. Cost $50 at the bottom. Pick it around. My creature looks like his creature. You're con artists, taking advantage of these people. Serious accusation, friends. No doubt brought on by enthusiastic. Listen, not everyone's cut out of an elite tamer. It's certain You can search a knowledgeable tamer. Show me a real adult regular. That's $50. Not. Please do not throw change in the fountain. It clogs the plumbing. That must be the palace proper. Okay, so we can shortcut through the town. Where's our friend, though? Hats, pair of boots, and a saddle. Regular cowboy get up on the shelf. Boy, these hats are mighty fine, aren't they? You consider swapping out that straw hat number for your real man's hat. One of them old fairy tales got a great hero with a cowboy's hat in him. He also had a Dracula, I think, but I ain't got one of those. Gotta get me the soundbite together. So now I know it's a straw hat. Okay, I appreciate that. The barge is the best business, but I'm sure it didn't get there by slacking off. It would be better to have some desperate choice. Why don't you tell me about the SU thing? Have to find more knowledge. Oh, it means I can swim in the other area. Oh, what's up, buddy? Many people go out this way. How are you? I'm fine. What are you doing out here? Enjoying watching the waves, listening to them. They remind me of the way things come and go, and the inevitable of it. Waves aren't in control, but they don't seem to begrudge it. Waves are alive. They can't suffer loss. They could. They might want that control. Do you think you ever see the same wave twice? What even is a wave? You say that they can't suffer loss, but that's because there's nothing there to suffer loss. The wave is an illusion of many factors coming together. What? I ask you, have you ever met the same person twice? If I walk away in minutes, come back. I've met you twice. But am I the same? Both body functions, thoughts, and many things compound every second. Next time you come here, it could be more lonely. I could be beyond happy. You could have a new outlook on life tomorrow. At every moment, infinite possibilities flood at us, shift at us, internal and external. You can claim there's a difference. We are changing right now as we come to understand each other. What exactly are you driving at? We, as we said, understand ourselves, emerge from multiple factors. As the waves do, there is no mystery wailing by the beach. That's just what this combination of factors look like. It requires many things. The beach, the history of the factors that even created the oceans, or the sand, my mental temperament, informed by my parents in evenings in my life. This is a web of events colliding. Place the body right here, right now. There is nothing to suffer. Nor there is a reason to begrudge if our bodies produce suffering beyond this. So, you may look beyond this. Freedom from suffering is available. That sounds good, but the way things are right now, I feel what I feel. I have to do what I have to do. So, I may understand what you're talking about. But life hasn't given me a choice. The way that has just brushed my feet had no say in it. Standing carried away didn't walk there. You owe no one explanation for where or how you are. It would be no other way. Good day, kid. Everything comes and goes. Exile lands. You know, I'll fly to Siltstone and check that out for a minute. I actually kind of want to get all the places of it accessible. Hey, Cole! You're glowing rainbows. What is this? And you're at half health? I'm just gonna use this free pack. I have a feeling the region will get stronger and stronger as I, It's like a pretty big building. Oh, no. Need temps? Miles must be respected. You're young and feel invincible. It's easy to underestimate the danger. But I already lost 2 family members to bitter cold. Jeez, Mom. Nope. Field. I kind of want to go back to that cave now that I have the ability to swim. definitely need to get to the soft step what things. Oh, hello. No, thanks, man. Some things are just ready to fight. Oh. Wait. Ah! That's what I needed. Bigs down here, isn't it? Oh, you're bet. I bet there's something nice and powerful down here. Excuse me? Oh. That's an actual thing. A creature that should never exist in this world, born of the margins between atoms. Oh. Okay. Okay, so it rejects packs. Leaves in 2. Poses no threat, it just... Oh. This place. What is that monster? We first bored into this world, we regarded the earth with envious eyes. Voice, where's it coming from? Monster, surely. The world was promised to us by our mother. Made us perfect in her image. We alone would be the masters of the universe. Our understanding of existence was unparalleled. With our science, nothing was possible. Upon our lonely moon, we aspired to greater something greater, something that would make our existence worth our toil and pain. Azazel is the keeper of secrets, the one who knows our legend. Azazel shall carry forth our holy mission upon your scheme, trespasser. well. Blech. Ow. Minus 90 speed, it's actually pretty good for us. The sheen of a demon thing. Well, I have something cool and weird now. You have enemies in many places. To come with you, proving your worth to me. Finding me was not easy. I'll finish. Stayed together. Oh, same voice from earlier. Dreaming. Well. Wish I had a quick exit item. So tiny, I needed him. Oh, that's probably gonna KO. Oh, it didn't. Very sturdy little dude. Now we should get out of here. Creatures are wild looking. They're very sturdy. Join me. Wish to leave, creature. Just gonna use these rocks as shortcuts here and there. Meow. I got a creature that will join my crusade. What? What is he in the notebook of things? Fragile. Takes more damage from crits. Gravity. Opponents use twice as much MP per move. Opponents still use a move if they have 1 MP remaining. Lifetime. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Behavior. Chase. Class. Demon. Clocks it at 25 growth rate across the board. Good gracious, I have found something. I have no idea. Wait, actually, wait, no. His stats are so, like, I think the only thing we would want. Yeah, he has above average growth rate. Ability and massive power to overwhelm the opponent. He can use a number of difficult magical abilities to destabilize its target and move in for a kill unimpeded. Zal is immensely loyal, obedient to the command of who has pacted it unquestionably. Like other monsters under the influence of the demon pack, Roselle seems to have its own personality outside the whims of the Tower. The fact that he talks is gonna reason why I've joined the dark. I want that on a critter. I want glowy. God, it's so... Spiral shaver. Oh, he has no typing, so he has no weakness. So how in the world did I crumble him? Does he just have a poor growth rate in a set? No. So how did I crumble him? Heck, wait. No, his HP is 3.5. Why is his HP so low? Is that a storm? Well, it's close enough to wrap it up, but okay. Hey, can we breed him with anybody? $3.5. 5.1 or 5.2 species. Deity. Why is his HP stat so low? Well, Actually, no. Oh, it's like that. It's not that bad. Actually, huh? It just feels low. Huh. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the torch to someone else wonderful, because one, it's doing the thunderstorm, so I'm gonna go ahead and just knock that out. I'm gonna have like an abrupt end to the stream. I'd rather do that. So please give. Okay, who we can braid into. A Mogul Bear. Oh no, they've been on for let's try. Oh, Sonic games. Sonic games are fun. Give the give Stargazer a nice warm welcome as they play their Sonic Origins? That does not look like Sonic Origins. It could, as far as I'm aware. Maybe I'm thinking of it for game. Well, regardless, please give it a nice warm welcome. And as I always say, be good, be safe, above all, be yourselves. I'll see if you want for creatures for probably more of this game, and I'll probably be moving Hollow Knight to just Sundays for now. Until I feel like until I feel a little bit more groove with it. I'll see you if you want for creatures. Good Friday. See you guys then. Laters.